Rome, the Trevi Fountain. Do you hear that sound? It's more than just the rush of water. It's a roar, a thunder, a symphony performed by stone tritons and winged horses for centuries. Every day, thousands of people toss coins into its emerald green basin, each making a wish. They snap photos of the dazzling white marble and marvel at the power of the sculptures. But few stop to ponder the water itself. Where does it come from right in the heart of the city? The answer is astonishing. This water doesn't flow from modern pipes. It travels through a channel older than most world religions, older than many empires. It journeys through an aqueduct built over 2,000 years ago. Yes, the water splashing in the Trevi Fountain today is the same water that Roman emperors once beheld. It's a living, flowing echo of a great civilization. When we think of Roman aqueducts, a vivid image springs to mind, a vast, bustling city, 1 million inhabitants. They need water to survive. Aqueducts served as the arteries that nourished Rome, quenching its thirst. We've been taught that this was a triumph of engineering, born from a pressing necessity. The Romans, masterful builders, tamed nature to provide their people with clean drinking water from distant sources. This is a story of survival, of a government caring for its citizens. It all seems so clear. Aqueducts symbolize life, majestic structures designed to meet our most fundamental human need. And this narrative is so compelling that we accept it as absolute truth. Now, brace yourself. Everything you just imagined is a grand myth. Aqueducts were not a vital necessity for drinking water. This claim might sound outrageous, but it's a historical fact. For centuries before the first aqueduct was built, Rome thrived without them. People drank from the Tiber River, collected rainwater in cisterns, and dug wells. That was enough for survival. So why did they construct these colossal, incredibly expensive structures crossing mountains and valleys? The answer boils down to one word: luxury. Aqueducts symbolized not survival, but a resounding declaration of power and wealth. Their primary purpose wasn't to supply kitchens of ordinary citizens, it was to provide water to massive public baths, thermae, where deals were struck and intrigues unfolded. They fed hundreds of decorative fountains, which served as artworks rather than sources of drinking water. And of course, they supplied water to the villas of the patricians, the richest and most influential families in Rome. Having running water in your home marked you as part of the elite. Consider the scale of this endeavor. The Romans poured unimaginable resources into a project that wasn't essential for the city's survival. They mobilized legions of engineers, surveyors, and laborers. They invented hydraulic concrete capable of setting underwater and perfected arch designs to span waterways over chasms. All of this was for public baths and stunning fountains. Imagine if today an entire nation spent a budget comparable to a space program, not on hospitals or roads, but on creating the largest spa and amusement park system in the world. This shifts everything. This isn't a story of necessity. It's a tale of unprecedented ambition. It forces us to ask an entirely different question. It's not just about why they did it. It's about how it was even possible. Building such a grand system for luxury required more than just money. It demanded engineering genius that borders on the fantastical. But how did they manage to channel water over tens of kilometers through hills and valleys, maintaining a perfect, almost imperceptible slope without lasers, satellites, or modern tools? Gravity. It's the only engine that Roman engineers had. A simple, relentless law of nature. Water flows only downward. To make it travel for miles, they had to create an artificial river with a perfect, nearly imperceptible slope. This is where engineering magic begins, leaving you breathless. Make the incline too steep, and the powerful current will erode and destroy the stone channel over the years. Make it too gentle, and the water will stagnate, turning into a swamp. They needed the perfect balance, a golden mean stretched over vast distances, and the Romans found it. Some aqueducts drop just 1 meter over 20 kilometers. Try to wrap your mind around that. That's a slope of 0.005%. So tiny that the human eye can hardly detect it. How did they achieve this? Their secret wasn't lasers or satellites, it was sheer genius in its simplicity. Take a look at the Corabat. It's simply a long, perfectly straight wooden beam. sometimes up to 6 meters long, with a groove for the water down the center. When the water in the groove sat level, the surface was horizontal, using plumb lines and a primitive angle measuring tool called a dioptra, a precursor to the theodolite. They meticulously charted their artificial river across the countryside, step by step, measuring each meter. Maintaining the perfect gradient on flat terrain is one thing, but what happens when a valley lies in your path? The Romans had an astonishing solution, and you can still see it today. Arches. Rather than go around obstacles, they simply vaulted over them. The most famous example? The Pont du Gard in southern France. This isn't just a bridge, it's a 3-tiered marvel that stands nearly 50 meters tall, carrying an aqueduct atop its impressive structure. Stand at its base, and you'll feel like an ant next to a giant. Now, here's the real surprise. This colossal structure, made up of stone blocks weighing as much as 6 tons each, was built with almost no mortar. The stones fit together with such incredible precision that it has stood for 2,000 years, supported solely by its own weight. It's a triumph of pure physics and geometry. Tens of thousands of tons of stone seem to float in the air, allowing a tiny stream at the top to continue its journey, maintaining its meticulously calculated slope down to the millimeter. Yet, sometimes the valleys were too deep, even for such grand bridges. Constructing arches hundreds of meters high proved impossible. Any other civilization would have turned back, but not the Romans. They devised a solution so elegant and bold that it feels like magic. Instead of going over the valley, they went through it. This technique is known as reverse siphoning. It operates on a simple physical principle. Water in connected vessels always seeks to reach the same level. Roman engineers built a massive reservoir on one side of the valley. From there, they laid airtight lead or stone pipes down to the very bottom and then up the other slope. The water, driven by its own weight, rushed downward and forcefully propelled itself upward, nearly to the same height from which it had fallen. They made the water flow uphill. This required incredibly strong pipes capable of withstanding immense pressure, along with calculations that still impress hydraulic engineers today. Water, drawn from the purest mountain springs, has traveled an incredible journey. It flowed through underground tunnels, staying cool and protected along the way. It crossed valleys on massive bridges. It plunged into the depths of canyons and soared upward through siphons. Tens, sometimes hundreds, of kilometers lay behind it. Finally, this vast, continuous river, crafted by human ingenuity, arrives at the walls of the eternal city. Each day, hundreds of millions of liters of crystal-clear water flood into Rome. But what happens to it next? How does this colossal flow transform from an engineering marvel into the lifeblood that sustains urban life? Hundreds of millions of liters of crystal-clear water flow toward the walls of Rome, only to enter a system that, by all chemical laws, should have slowly poisoned its inhabitants. This isn't an exaggeration, it's a toxic paradox at the very heart of the eternal city. Once the aqueduct delivered its precious cargo, the water flowed into a complex network of pipes snaking beneath the streets. And these pipes, they were made of lead. Yes, that same lead we now know to be a neurotoxin, capable of causing irreversible damage to the brain and nervous system. The Romans weren't fools. They understood the dangers. Both Pliny the Elder and the architect Vitruvius wrote about the risks associated with lead pipes, noting that workers who handled them often fell ill. Yet they continued to use lead, kilometer after kilometer. Why? Because lead was the perfect material for its time. It was malleable, easy to melt, and could be shaped into sheets from which they crafted pipes of any length and diameter. It represented a compromise between engineering convenience and a risk they believed was manageable. This toxic flow didn't spill onto the streets randomly. It entered the nerve center of the urban water system, the Castellan Aquae. This massive distribution reservoir often stood as a monumental and beautifully adorned structure perched on elevated ground. Here, the tumultuous water from the aqueduct slowed down and calmed. Heavy particles of sand and debris settled to the bottom. From this central hub, purified water branched out across the city along 3 main conduits, each meticulously designed. Engineers installed pipes of varying diameters at different heights. It was brilliantly simple, The highest pipes, which received water first, directed it to public fountains and cisterns, allowing ordinary citizens to collect water for free. The mid-level pipes fed the famous Roman baths, vast public bathing complexes that served as more than just washing spots. They were social hubs. Only the lowest pipes, which received water last, led to the private villas of the elite, who paid a hefty price for this luxury. And here, the scale of the paradox becomes truly unsettling. These lead-laden pipes nourished what Rome held dear. Majestic fountains adorned every square, where children played and lovers met. Grand baths served as venues for senators to strike deals and poets to share their verses amid steamy clouds. Lavish villas of emperors and aristocrats, complete with their personal pools and gardens, epitomized a civilization of comfort and leisure. All this splendor we see in films was built upon a system that should have poisoned everyone, from the poorest citizen to the emperor himself. Generation after generation, Romans drank this water, cooked their meals with it, and bathed in it. Theoretically, this should have led to catastrophic health consequences for the nation. But it didn't happen. Rome didn't perish. The reason, not the brilliance of engineers, but sheer luck and the unique chemistry of the water itself. Rescue came from an unexpected source. It flowed from the very mountain springs that marked the beginning of the aqueducts. The water they carried was hard, rich in calcium carbonate. As it coursed through lead pipes, a miracle unfolded. Minerals settled slowly, layer by layer, on the inner walls. Over the years of use, a dense, solid layer of limescale formed inside each pipe. This natural stone lining acted as a perfect insulator. It created a barrier between the toxic metal and the flowing water. Essentially, nature herself, unbeknownst to the Romans, was lining their hazardous pipes, making them safe. The hard water that now forces us to battle limescale in our kettles literally saved civilization from its own brilliant yet deadly invention. The danger has passed. Rome now enjoyed almost unlimited access to clean, and as it turned out, safe water. Engineers tackled this challenge with a brilliance that still astonishes us today. But when a resource becomes as vital as the lifeblood of a city, engineering questions give way to questions of power. Water is life. Water is luxury. Water is politics. Who decided which neighborhoods would receive a new fountain? Who controlled access to private villas? And most importantly, was this vast, unending flow a blessing for all, or a tool of power wielded by the few? The danger is past. Rome now enjoyed nearly unlimited access to clean, and, as it turned out, safe, water. But when a resource as vital as the lifeblood of a city emerges, engineering concerns quickly shift to questions of power. The answer to who controlled this precious flow is both simple and ruthless. It was the one sitting at the top. The aqueduct wasn't just a public good, it served as a tool of control, a lever of influence, and a tangible symbol of hierarchy. The streams capable of quenching 1 million thirsty citizens weren't meant for everyone equally. They followed strict political laws. Water transformed into a currency. Not the kind that jingles in a pocket, but the kind that grants mercy, buys loyalty, and signifies status. The distribution of this liquid gold evolved into a complex game where the stakes were high, and the imperial palace dictated the rules. This civilization thrived on water, and that very water solidified its social pyramid. Let's step onto the streets of first-century Rome. Here, a woman carries a heavy clay jug on her shoulder, making her way to the nearest public fountain. The bustling crowd surrounds her, filled with the laughter of children and the splashing of water. For her, as for the vast majority of residents, water was free and accessible. But she had to fetch it herself. This was communal water, public for all. Now, let's shift a few blocks away, beyond the tall walls of a senator's villa. Here, silence reigns, broken only by the gentle trickle of a private fountain in the center of a marble atrium. The water here doesn't come from a shared source. It flows directly into the home. It fills personal baths, irrigates gardens bursting with exotic flowers, and cools wine on a scorching day. These were two distinct worlds, divided by an invisible yet unyielding wall, the wall of access to water. For some, it was a public good that demanded effort. For others, it was a private luxury, flowing endlessly. And this is where the tension reaches its peak. You could be a fabulously wealthy merchant, owning dozens of ships and villas scattered across Italy. But none of that mattered. You would still have to walk to the public fountain for water, because only one person in the entire empire granted the right to a private connection to the aqueduct: the emperor. This wasn't a service you could simply buy. It was the highest grace, a mark of personal favor that aligned you with Rome's most influential families. And it wasn't merely a permission slip on papyrus. It was a tangible symbol of your status. A bronze spigot, known as a calyx, engraved with your name, which engineers would forge directly into the city's main line. This served as an eternal, indelible marker of your elevated position. Anyone who saw that calyx understood one thing: this person was under Caesar's personal protection. Aqueducts transformed from engineering marvels into tools of imperial policy. Their stone arches carried more than just water. They conveyed the idea of order, hierarchy, and absolute power concentrated in the hands of a single ruler. This system thrived in its time. It nourished the masses to maintain peace and rewarded the elite to ensure loyalty. But even the mightiest empires crumble, barbarians at the gates, cities ablaze, gold looted. When the power that upheld this system fell, when the emperor's name on the calyx lost all meaning, what happened to these stone rivers? Did they fall silent forever, becoming colossal monuments to a bygone era? Or did their pulse, that quiet hum, continue to resonate through the darkness of the ages? Their rumble never faded, their pulse never stopped. Roman aqueducts were never just static monuments of stone and mortar. They functioned as a living, breathing organism, a colossal circulatory system that demanded constant, unwavering care. Behind each majestic arch, behind every liter of pure water, stood an invisible army. A maintenance crew of over 700 people kept everything running smoothly. These were engineers, stonemasons, divers, and laborers whose lives unfolded not in sunlit forums, but in the darkness and dampness of miles of tunnels. While the aristocracy relaxed in the coolness of their baths, these workers waded waist-deep in icy water, scraping mineral deposits off canal walls, clearing silt, and patching cracks. Their labor was endless and exhausting, hidden from sight, but it served as the lifeblood of the entire city. They were the immune system of Rome. Without them, these stone arteries would have long since clogged and failed. When the empire fell and barbarians torched villas while forums turned to wild grass, something remarkable happened. Many of those stone rivers kept flowing. Their survival tells a story not just of the strength of stone, but of the resilience of knowledge. You could dismantle the arches, but erasing the ideas embedded within them proved far more challenging. The understanding that canals needed cleaning, that gradients had to be precise, and that leaks demanded immediate attention passed down through generations. Popes, local feudal lords, and city communes, everyone who succeeded the Caesars knew one truth: without water, a city would die. They did what they could to sustain it. Some aqueducts fell into disrepair, becoming picturesque ruins. Yet others, the most vital ones, continued their quiet, relentless work, nourishing medieval Rome as they endured wars, plagues, and the passage of time. They outlived their creators because they were simply too important to fade away. This living thread, stretched across 2,000 years of chaos and change, brings us back to the very place where it all began, the Trevi Fountain. Listen once more to the thunder of water crashing against the sculptures of Oceanus and his Tritons. The water filling the basin of the fountain today, in the 21st century, flows along the same path as it did 2,000 years ago. This isn't a modern reconstruction. It's the working Aqua Virgo aqueduct, built on the orders of Marcus Agrippa, the son-in-law of Emperor Augustus. Over the years, it faced damage, buried under earth, forgotten. Yet time and again, people have cleared, repaired, and revived it. The water you see began its journey at the very same springs, traveled through channels crafted by Roman engineers, and ended here, in the heart of a modern city. The Trevi Fountain isn't just a Baroque masterpiece. It's a living conclusion to a story that started 2,000 years ago. So what exactly is a Roman aqueduct? It's much more than just a means of transporting water from point A to point B. It's a lesson carved in stone, a lesson that reminds us empires fall, gold turns to dust, and the names of emperors fade from memory. Yet, what is crafted with brilliant simplicity, serving fundamental human needs, can outlast any civilization. Aqueducts aren't monuments of power. They're monuments to intellect, perseverance, and care. They prove that the greatest creations aren't the ones that shout the loudest about strength, but those that quietly support life, generation after generation, millennium after millennium.